Hello, Professor. Today's presentation is going to be on a comprehension strategy. And this one that I chose to present is the think aloud strategy. So let's open up these slides and get started. The agenda is choose one of the comprehension strategies discussed in Chapter 7. Then, using screencast, Zoom, or comparable technology, record a 5-minute video explaining what the strategy is, how it can be used, an example of how you might use the strategy with your own grade content level. And it should include visuals, desktop, creative materials that are necessary for implementation. And I do not have to show myself in the video. Okay, so my comprehension strategy is think aloud. Think aloud is when teachers, they make their thinking explicit by verbalizing their thoughts while reading orally. They'll be reading a book to the class and they'll start to think out loud questions and things that are making them just wonder what's happening in the story. So instead of keeping it to themselves, they are out in the open sharing it with the class. The Think Out Loud strategy helps readers to clarify their understanding of reading and their understanding of how to use strategies. And of course, I got this quote from the textbook. How it can be used. So this is my personal opinion. This is how I feel Think Aloud can be used. Think Aloud can be used to make connections between prior knowledge and new information. So both teacher and student can do that. It can be used to spark curiosity in the reader. It can help readers engage meaningfully and purposefully. It can expand comprehension for students. It can prepare readers to participate in open conversations. And it is a great before activity from the BDA strategy. Example of how it can be used in a first grade classroom, which is the grade that I am doing this slide for, this presentation for, and it would be for a science content area. So here's what it would look like. I took a passage from online, and it is about a story, The Gardener and the King, and this is part of the passage from that story. The king looked at his garden from the balcony. I can't stand it any longer. We have to find a gardener who can bring my garden to life. We've tried, said the queen. No matter who works in the garden, they can't get anything to grow. So now a think aloud would look like this. The teacher is reading this passage to the students, and for demonstration I have provided an image of a teacher who looks like he's reading the story. And so the teacher would say, I wonder what is happening with the king's garden. Why is it that his garden is not growing despite him hiring gardeners in the past to care for it? So let's start making predictions. Why do you think his garden is not growing even though he has invested in other gardeners? And so this would unfold in this way. The teacher addresses the questions out loud and welcomes students to engage in the discussion about the questions. Students do get into groups and take turns reading the passage, asking and answering questions. Student says, well, maybe the reason nothing is growing in the garden is because the other gardeners did not have enough experience. That would be one of the students' predictions. Another student can say, well, maybe that is why the king said in the next few lines, I want a gardener whose parents and grandparents were gardeners. I want someone with gardening in their blood. And now the following slide, I've provided what would look like a timeline of all the things that could take place before, during, and after this think aloud is taking place. And I gave reasonable time frames I think that this would take for each piece. So students take turns in groups answering questions. That would be 10 minutes. It's just conversations between students. The next 10 minutes, students are taking turns to ask even more questions. They are expanding their knowledge and they're diving deeper into the passage. That would be another 10 minutes. Now, for the other part, which would be 30 minutes, it's a little longer. Students in their groups will build a word sort. So they'll look for evidence in the passages to see what is happening, that the garden is not growing, and they would just build a word sort together looking for evidence. Students also will share with classmates their predictions of what could be happening. And that's another 30 minutes because we want to give all the groups the opportunity to share and to have the opportunity to share with the class what they have come up with in their word sort so we can learn from one another. And then the remaining 15 minutes, I would have the students independently write in their journals about the assignment, about their predictions, and they would have to use the evidence that they found in the text. Now, here in this slide, it's just how this would look in terms of images, just for visualization. So in the left image, you have the students working in the groups. They're creating the word sort. They're asking each other for evidence. They're looking for clues as to what is happening. They're making predictions. And again, this is so that it opens up and it expands the unit into a science unit, into a science lesson where we're going to go into predictions and observations and hypothesis and how to use scientific methods. So this is kind of like a fun way of getting kids interested and involved and kind of giving them like bite size so that we can scaffold and go into a deeper unit in science. And so the picture on the right is students that are sharing their predictions and their word sort with the class in form of a presentation. And again, as I mentioned, this is leading into a science unit. So this is the content area, science, and we will be talking about scientific method. And the last slide to culminate this presentation is the references that I've used. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, Professor, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching.